In this third episode of our Communal Property Essentials series, I'm going to cover the 4 key components that you need to create an accurate annual budget for your apartment building or resort. As a management committee, one of your important tasks is the calculation of the budget. But personally, I think this is probably the most important duty of your management committee. When you think about it, if you calculate your budget incorrectly, you're either going to end up with unpaid bills and reduced service levels, or you're going to need to scramble to get owners to make an extra payment in the middle of the financial year. And that's going to be fun. On top of this, you'll also have exposed yourself to liability, as a unit owner could argue that you failed to meet the committee's legal obligations to maintain your building. You could find that your building sued under the disabilities law over that lift that had to be closed because you couldn't afford to maintain it. Or you might find yourself uninsured in the event of an incident because you didn't pay your insurance policy. So, how do you create an accurate budget? Well, you look at 4 key components. If you find the information useful in this video, please give it a thumbs up or a like, and don't forget to hit that follow, subscribe or share button below. Hopefully you have folders with years of communal expenses for your building. Well, you should put all of this information together into a single spreadsheet showing the total for each expense year by year. So you would have a total for how much you spent on electricity in 2016, a separate total for 2017, and so on and so on. With utilities, I also suggest don't just put the cost. Put the usage down as well. That way you have a record showing how many units of electricity you used each year, and you can use the current price per unit to estimate your cost at the current electricity prices. You should also highlight anything out of the ordinary for that year, so if you had a major water leak, you know why the usage was higher than normal and that it's not an ongoing increase that you need to plan for this year. If you don't have records, or maybe you don't know what types of records to keep, well, I'm going to let you into a small secret. That's going to be the subject of the next video in this series. Wouldn't it be great if everything always went to plan all the time? Yep, not going to happen. The only thing that you can guarantee to expect is the unexpected, but you can plan for that too. So when you've got your estimated costs, you should add a small contingency margin to cover any potential difference. Now, I generally recommend about 10% on top of whatever the estimate is for that expense. You should add this contingency margin to anything that's subject to change, like your utility costs or maybe your general maintenance budgets and so on. Anything that's highly unlikely to change, like a fixed management fee, well, you can skip that step. I also suggest that you include an extra budget item to cover anything that's completely out of the unexpected. You would call this an out of budget expense. Now, the amount you budget for these out of budget expenses, that's up to you. But I find that if you set this as 10% of the overall budget amount, then you're going to have a lot more protection against both running out of funds due to higher than expected expenses or some unexpected emergency expense. And of course, if these don't happen, this money doesn't disappear. You're going to have these as a surplus at the end of your financial year, which can either be transferred back to your unit owners, which I'm sure will be a welcome bonus, especially if your financial year runs January to December, or it can be carried over to the next year's budget, which will lower next year's fees. And yes, you should be changing your fees every year based on your new updated budget. I've got a whole article on this subject which you can read on my website. If you know your swimming pool is on its last legs and needs a new liner urgently, well, this is a one-off expense, but you need to plan for it. Otherwise, you're going to end up either with an empty pool, or you're going to need to find the money by stealing from one of the other budget items. And stealing's never cool. This is where you'll find good records helps, as most items in your building will have a predicted life expectancy. So if you know your pool liner normally lasts 10 years and yours is 9 years old, well, you need to plan that it's going to be an expensive year. One of the other things most commonly overlooked is budgeting for those unit owners who don't pay their fees during that year. Of course, you shouldn't be ignoring these owners, and you should take every measure that you have possible to collect this debt, but some of these recovery actions, especially things like legal action through the backlogged Cyprus court system, they take time. Time where you have less income but the same level of expenses. So the way you budget for this bad debt is using your records to look at those units who you feel are unlikely to pay their share of this year's fees. And you add those expected unpaid fees together. You put this on its own budget line item and you call it bad debt. The legal justification to include bad debt in your budget is a whole topic on its own, and it is something that I will cover in another video later in the year. But suffice it to say, you need to include it, otherwise you guarantee to have a cash shortfall. You've probably already figured out that all of these key components have one thing in common. It's far easier to implement them if you've got good records. And the different types of records you should be keeping and how to keep them will be the subject in the next episode in our Communal Property Essentials video series. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, you can click on the subscribe button below. And don't forget to hit that bell icon next to it to make sure that you're notified when new videos are released. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I do check these and will answer them. Also, we have a great Facebook page and group, so look up Cyprus Communal Guide or check out the link in the description below. If you're watching this video on our Facebook page, please give this post a like and share it if you found it useful. My name's Russell Flick from the Cyprus Communal Guide, helping you unlock your building's true potential. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.